West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy with Chef Justice Putnam. Netrootsradio.com.
Je voudrais du soleil vert, des dentelles et des théières, des photos de bord de mer, dans mon jardin d'hiver. Je voudrais de la lumière, comme en Nouvelle-Angleterre. Je veux changer d'atmosphère, dans mon jardin d'hiver. À fleurs sous la pluie de novembre, tes mains qui courent, je n'en peux plus de t'attendre. Les années passent, il est loin, là je tombe. Nul ne peut nous entendre. Je voudrais du Fred Astaire, revoir un latte
view it as a bowl, and I call it the voice. It's the voice of America. It's my voice.
Are you even talking about this? It's a scam, just like everything he's ever been involved in is some sort of con.
What do all these things have in common? Flirt, the number 4, free.com, naked.com, stripchat.com, and Donald Trump. The Guardian reported that it has obtained leaked documents showing that in 2022, Trump Media, the parent company of Trump's Truth Social, received a total of $8 million in loans from a company called ES Family Trust. So shady loans, insider trading, and a company that is hemorrhaging cash and is somehow Trump's big financial lifeline.
In typical Donald Trump fashion, there's already been some major fraud involving his Truth Social company.
Not a political question about former President Trump, but actually a business question about Truth Social. You've seen this stock on the move in this, I'll call it remarkable, maybe even crazy way.
Just say 2 words, GameStop.
GameStop. That's what you think is going on here?
It's ridiculous.
The
company has no revenue.
But do you think it could ever be a bigger business? Do you think if he wins the presidency, it becomes...
Why?
I'm asking...
Why would it be bigger? Look, he's only interesting now because he's out there entertaining the folks. I hope if he does get elected, he just plays golf for 4 years. But
so do you think that all of the investors in this are getting scammed? Do you think they think this is a transference of wealth from one side to the other, and that's the goal? What do you think is happening?
I think they're dopes. I mean, who would buy a company that literally has, I think, what does it have? $30 of revenue?
I think it was $4 million. It was
$4 million in revenue. That's $4 million in revenue. It's ridiculous. I'm not saying it's not real.
$4 million.
Why are you even talking about this? It's a scam, just like everything he's ever been involved in is some sort of con.
Let me pivot.
Amazing survival of a con man is just beyond comprehension, but there it is.
Digital World Acquisition Company was the shell company that was formed a few years ago, and that company went public with the sole intent of then acquiring Truth Social to bring Truth Social public. The Digital World Acquisition Company has already paid $18 million to the SEC in a penalty regarding their fraud investigation into the company, which delayed the merger to begin with. And now just this week, 2 investors from Miami, brothers, bought shares in Digital World Acquisition Company before it went public, knowing it was going to be going public. They made millions of dollars in this insider trading scheme and just pled guilty this week in New York on these federal charges. Their sentencing can be up to 20 years each. Federal prosecutors are recommending far less, but it is up to the judge what their sentence will ultimately be. Specifically, one of the brothers made $18 million in his trading profits, the other one $4.6 million. And also very Trump-like, the proceeds, part of the proceeds from that $18 million went to buy a $14 million luxury yacht that he named the Provocateur.
Two of the early investors in the company that Trump media tried to merge with in 2021 pleaded guilty to securities fraud, or in layman's terms, insider trading that netted them tens of millions of dollars. We are going to get some very expert help with all of the specifics here in just a moment, but let's just zoom out for a second. Truth Social is largely seen as Donald Trump's biggest financial lifeline. Last week, Trump's net worth shot up by more than $4 billion because of his stock in the company. $4 billion because investors believe Trump's media company is a good investment. A media company we now know was in the red to the tune of $58 million last year. So shady loans, insider trading, and a company that is hemorrhaging cash and is somehow Trump's big financial lifeline. What is actually happening here?
In addition to all of the fraud allegations and insider trading, there is the fact that the stock has plummeted this week because it is just not very valuable. 8K filing that their own company made said that they had lost $58 million in revenue last year. They have only less than 500,000 active users compared to 100 million active users for platforms like Facebook. So it's not surprising that Trump went on to Truth Social to say a bunch of things that probably aren't true.
It's down 18% right there. You can see it. It has been dropping throughout the morning. This comes after the company that owns Truth Social posted financial numbers this morning. CNN's Matt Egan joins me now. Matt, this is no April Fool's joke, but it might be making some fools out of investors out there.
Yeah, Jimmy, it might be. We should note, though, that this stock really had been going up like a rocket ship until now. These new numbers are forcing a mini reality check. I say mini because despite the loss of 18% as we speak, we're still talking about a stock that has skyrocketed about 200% so far this year. It spiked in January when Donald Trump ran away with the Iowa caucuses and up again as the company went public. So here's the latest numbers that are concerning investors. Truth Social owner Trump Media lost $58 million last year, and it generated very, very little revenue, just $4.1 million in revenue. Put some context around that figure of revenue. If you look back at what Twitter generated when it went public about a decade ago, in that final year when it went public, $665 million, more than 100 times what Trump Media has been able to rake in. And some of this is not shocking because we know that Truth Social is struggling. I mean, it is shrinking. Monthly active US users on iOS and Android down 51% year over year. It's not just much smaller than Twitter, it's even smaller than Threads. And I think all of this just underscores why there's a lot of warnings out there about this stock, right? One professor told me it's a bubble. Another basically called it a meme stock. So Jim, listen, we're going to see this stock go up and down because its valuation right now is very, very high.
Yeah, what a shocker that this is a meme stock. All right, Matt Egan, caveat emptor.
Said specifically that the company had, quote, $200 million in cash and zero debt, and said that it was very good for a startup and growing fast. Now, here's the thing. We're kind of used to Trump saying whatever he wants, and most of it is lies and not having many consequences. But when you are a 60% shareholder in a public company like he is here in the Trump Media company, you have a fiduciary duty to the rest of the shareholders, and he has access to inside information. And if that public company doesn't actually have $200 million in cash and zero debt, they can sue him, and the SEC can go after him as well. So the other question everyone asks is Trump going to dump his own stock? Is he going to get out while it's still relatively relatively up because, as we know, the valuation of the company is nowhere close to the value of the stock, even after the stock has plummeted. Well, he's going to have a few restrictions. For one, he has a 6-month lockup agreement with the new company's board, which is typical. It would say that insiders can't just buy and dump the stock because that's going to basically tank the whole deal that was just made. He might be able to talk his way into the board releasing him from that, but that is a risk. The rest of them might lose their money too. And I don't know if everybody is so willing to lose their money with Trump. I mean, they've certainly been willing to go to prison for him, so maybe. But beyond that, there's something called the 10B, part of the SEC fraud restrictions. And the fact is that if he has any kind of inside information, he can't sell his stock either. Typically, an insider like Trump in a public company has a schedule for when they want to sell their stock. They tell a trader that at a certain price and at a certain date, that stock should be sold. That way they don't risk selling a stock similar to any kind of time where they might have access to information. So Trump may have quite a bit of restrictions on whether or not he gets out when he wants to get out, not just the lockup, but the SEC rules as well. It was revealed in federal court documents that there was even more interesting things going on regarding the Digital World Acquisition Company. This was the shell company that helped bring Truth Social public. So in addition to the two brothers, Gerald and Michael Schwartzman, who pled guilty to insider trading, there was a Russian-American businessman that made quite a lot of money. He was based in Miami. Evidently, he owns a Caribbean bank that caters to the porn industry, and he evidently loaned $8 million to Trump's media company. He not only resides in Miami, he evidently is the nephew of a former high-ranking Russian government official that has connections to, yes, you guessed it, Trump's best friend, Putin.
They asked me that question. One of the presidents of a big country stood up and said, well, sir, if we don't pay and we're attacked by Russia, will you protect us? I said, you didn't pay? You're delinquent? He said, yes, let's say that happened. No, I would not protect you. In fact, I would encourage them to do whatever the hell they want. You got to pay. You got to pay your bills. You know, it affects them much more than it affects us. We have an ocean in between us. They don't have that ocean in between.
The Russian-American businessman has not yet been charged, but he was part of the FBI warrant into the investigation of the insider trading that the two brothers just pled guilty to this week. This all has to do with the Digital World Acquisition Company and trades that were made right before and after it went public back in October 2021.
It is Monday, the 8th of April of 2024, and you are in West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy. I am your chef de cuisine, Justice Putnam. Gunner, the English bulldog, is our snoozing sous chef. Precious, the little Yorkie, is our door girl. And she will be seating you directly for our especially special daily special, River City Hash Mondays on the Great American Eclipse Day. Yes, it's great for those in the path of totality, just so you know. It's only partially great for the rest of us. How are you? How was your weekend? I had a great one, and I'll tell you why. Because, as you know, we did not have a show on Friday because we were up much earlier here at the mothership, and the mothership was put on robot mode for a bit. There was some handcrafted free programming because we do that. But we took my mother to the hospital for her procedure to have her, as I put it, her carotid artery routed out. That's right, get rid of all that plaque. And they did. And we can say it was successful because she walked out the next day. And that was lovely. So, had of course, the sit down with the surgeon, and he told us about what he did, and it was quite a bit. There was no other alternative. So any kind of hesitation one might have had previous, as I expressed here in this virtual salon. You always worry if you made the right decision because it's somebody else's body. But part of the human compact is that sometimes we have to give up responsibility to others. I know, it's weird. But that is involved with a matter of trust. So the surgeon was just assuring us that we made the right decision. There was no other decision. So he did that. And, of course, the other side has some issues, and we'll have to look into that and how soon we want to do that. But she was uncomfortable for a bit because where they went in on the same side as before and got pretty traumatized, and she tends to bruise anyway. So you look at her wrong, she bruises is the joke. But her skin is just gossamer thin, and it doesn't take much to tear it or to bruise, so it looked pretty unsightly. But it looks so much better today even. So from Saturday until today, I brought her home Saturday. And she's gotten up on her own. I encourage her to make sure that I'm nearby, and she always has her hands on 2 points of contact. Which means you have 3 because you have your feet too. But I'm not telling her, well, your feet and your one hand count as 2. Because then she won't use a hand. I got 2 feet. Yeah, Mom. So, she's doing so well. Keep my fingers crossed. So, but that is such great news. And now, we take little Precious in for her knee surgery, and that one will be repaired. And then we'll look at the other side. Oh, my. Life. Oh, here's some relatively, I think, good news. Jackson County here, where I live on the perimeter of Josephine and Jackson County, but our animal shelter was able to adopt all 27 dogs that were left. That they had to adopt, otherwise, they're gonna have to, what's the term? Euthanize, kill them. Well, they all escaped that terrible fate because people, guess what? They rescued them. So, that was to me, that's good news. The alternative, it just bothers me. Alrighty, so what else went on over the weekend? Oh my God. Won't this guy, Donald Trump, ever shut up? No. Grievance all day, every day. Otherwise, you can't be a fascist. Have you ever met a fascist that was ever truly happy? Ever? They're upset about everything. The Jews doing this, the darkies doing that. And the darkies encompass a lot. And then you look at him and you go, you're saying that you're the master race? Have you ever looked at yourself in a mirror? You troll? My God, where'd you come from? Under a bridge? Jeez. Yep. They didn't have the term incel back in the day, okay? But the grievances are about the same. They train them well. Yeah, you can't have fascism, since obviously procreation is not enough. They have to, recruit more. And they have. Right at the time that we all warned folks what would happen if we stopped teaching history and civics in our schools. And what was the excuse that they used back in the day? And we just laughed it off. Oh, yeah, I guess that's a free speech right for them to say that the teaching of American history and civics is indoctrinating our youth into leftist policies. Oh, what? You can't really believe that. You know what? They do. Now what do we have? A bunch of goddamn Nazi Jungen or Trumpen Jungen, same thing. Goose stepping here, goose stepping there. We got to go after birth control, so-called influencers are saying, and I think they're probably, the people behind the influencer persona are sitting on a couch in Macedonia or an office in the FSB. Just one of these tiny little cubicles. Not even on a sofa. Telling us that if it wasn't for birth control, we wouldn't have all the problems we have today. And what are those problems? Women having autonomy. Because sex is only for procreation, not for fun. Really? Have you tried that? So, there was a bit of pushback on that account. And I got to tell you, it's not just that account. Even the anti-public education, anti-government Looney Tune Bertrand LaRouche guy has started delving into the feminist question, which is feminists have invaded our schools and have been teaching our children about witchcraft. Feminism. I'm serious. I do have to admit, he kind of shut up here recently. I expect him to be posting anytime soon. He didn't this last weekend. I don't know. Did I miss it? Maybe he's hiding for the eclipse and rapture that's about to happen in a few hours now. 10:33 in Portland, we get a partial eclipse. Well, the beginning of a 33, 34, 36%. I think it said 36. That's Portland. We're in the southern part. I think we're about the same. We'll see where we are. Regardless. I think this guy's hiding out because he thinks he's going to be pulled up to heaven by... Wait a second. Am I mixing stuff up between Vishnu and the rapture? Is it all the same? I don't know. Similarities in all of these. It could be. Well, I'm not beaming up on board because apparently I'm not pure enough. And it would be great to get rid of all of these deplorables. What else are we? What are they? We need a bigger basket. I'm telling you. If you're going to put a bunch of deplorables in a basket and put them down the River Nile, you're going to need an ark. Something even bigger, maybe. A couple of arks. Take out a bridge or three. They could do that. For God. So, yeah. Even that guy's started floating the feminist question idea. They think they're going to win with that? No. They don't expect to win at the ballot box. Ballot boxes are just quaint ideas for a bunch of woke liberals. Mark my words. God, I don't want to have to go to the barricades. I don't want to have to go up in the hills. I don't want to have to be living in a cave listening for whom the bell tolls. And then partying in, Pamplona and running from the bulls. Because the sun also rises. Mm-hmm. All right. I'm not going to be called Papa. Well, actually, I am already by my grandkids. They call me Papa. So I guess I'm a little late on that one. Can I hone my writing style down to absolutely no adjectives? We'll see. Okay. Enough of obscure intonations. Are they so obscure after all? We don't know. Anyway, let's get into the curated part of this show that we curated for you. pretty much yesterday we put things together because, well, Mom takes a bit of care. And I actually don't want her at some point walking around too much by herself. I hope you don't mind. Okay. Well, yeah, Trump's shady plans at the top are exposed in that bombshell report, as reported by the Midas Touch folks. Thank you, folks. On the rest of the menu, the town of Eagle Pass, Texas, planned for years to fill the town's coffers from the tens of thousands of eclipse revelers. Because, eclipses have been pretty much forecast for hundreds, if not several hundred years. Well, you know what they got? Razor wire and armed soldiers from Greg Abbott instead. Happy holiday. A Democratic Oregon House candidate who filed fewer than 2 hours before the March 12 filing deadline is a big-time Republican donor. Yeah, he's going to go after an incumbent, and he thinks he can slip in just by being the Dem. They think we're stupid like they're deplorables. And I got to tell you, they need a bigger basket. And a trial begins today against BNSF Railway over lung cancer deaths in a small northwestern Montana town where thousands of people were exposed to asbestos from a vermiculite mine. They knew about the dangers. They decided not to let anyone else know. After the break, we move to the chef's table where London Metropolitan Police are investigating after a second conservative UK lawmaker is targeted in a honey trap sexting scam. And a Brazil Supreme Court justice ordered the investigation of Elon Musk over fake news and obstruction. All that and more on West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy. Bon appetit. Glitchy morning here this morning here at the mothership, and I'm trying to figure it out on the fly while we're also doing the show, but we'll see. We'll blame it on the eclipse, some sort of electromagnetic anomaly that is causing some problems. So, folks, you'll have to get it on the podcast, and you'll only probably in some cases be able to know by getting the podcast. So, yeah, all right. Well, sorry about all that's been happening at Netroots Radio. We're working behind the scenes to try to figure out what is happening. Software is glitching, and things are getting cut off while we're trying to do other kinds of work. So, I don't know. Will there be anybody at support to be able to help? That we got the new software from not very long ago. And it's really from the same software that we've used since really the very beginning of Netroots Radio, oh, so many years ago. Well, that stated, if you would go to the bottom of our homepage at netrootsradio.com, and if you would look there to the right, you'll notice that there is a chat room link. And Kelly Lincoln takes care of that chat room. Thank you, Kelly. And everything else, a lot of everything else Thank you, Kelly, once again. Across the page from that chat room link is the Patreon link. And you know what's coming. If you could maybe send us what you might spend on an espresso-type coffee drink once a month, that really helps us pay our bills and, fix the software that we just purchased not very long ago to go along with the fact that the old Dell, the ancient Dell, finally, it crapped out. So we had to scramble for that and update it over to the MacBook. And now it's glitching. What the heck? But nonetheless, it really does help us pay our bills and pay for all the other sundry costs that are accumulated, and we pay them, and we continue to fly under the radar to continue this powerhouse of resistance that really has been resisting, for almost 14 years now. Oops. Thank you for your generosity, truly. If you would like to follow Netroots Radio on social media, do so at Netroots Radio. Tom takes care of those. Thank you, Tom. Follow me on social media at Justice Putnam. I post the show notes and links diary on Daily Co's 10 minutes before showtime. And that way you have access to the actual reportage from the actual reporters in its entirety. Follow the show on Twitter at Cookbook West End Big Up Podcasts by way of Spreaker, TuneIn, iHeart, YouTube, iTunes, Audible, everywhere. Thank you for doing so. All right, let us now tuck into this first offering here in the Bistro Cafe of West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy, and it's by Michael Daly from The Daily Beast. The prospect of Eagle Pass, Texas, becoming the first municipality in America to see the total eclipse today triggered visions in the border town of big crowds, preceded by a big music festival. The city's marketing and tourism director, Aide Castano, told a 2023 meeting of the Eagle Pass Rotary Club that the city of 28,000 should prepare to host nearly 4 times its population for the event. Mark your calendar for the eclipse. Get your grocery shopping done. We're going to have 100,000 people in Eagle Pass. We're going to have millions of dollars in sales for downtown Eagle Pass, Castano said. According to the recollection of resident America Garcia Graywall, who attended the meeting. Garcia Graywall further recalled, one of the real estate agents is like, Airbnb will make $10,000 during the eclipse weekend. The producers of the festival named it 57 South Music Fest after U.S. Highway 57 South, which reaches the border at Eagle Pass, and the designated venue, city-owned Shelby Park. The scenic 47.5-acre grassy expanse on the banks of the Rio Grande has been the site of successful carnivals and events, including an international friendship celebration. The 57 South producers posted what seemed like a formula for a resounding success. 17 bands, 3 nights, 2 stages, and 1 total eclipse. April 5th through 7th, 2024. That was my AM radio voice. Could you tell? The city posted its own appeal. If you are a music lover and a celestial enthusiast, then there's no better time to start planning your trip to Eagle Pass, Texas. But nobody foresaw what Texas Governor Greg Abbott would seize control of the park on January 10th as the base for Operation Lone Star, a $10.5 billion political stunt in response to the invasion of migrants at the southern border. Invasions in scare quotes, by the way. He ordered the Texas Army National Guard soldiers, supported by state law enforcement officers, to place steel shipping containers and string razor wire along the water's edge. He barred federal Border Patrol agents from the site of the planned music festival. The city thought about canceling the 57 South, but instead arranged to relocate it to the grounds of the Kickapoo Lucky Eagle Casino, which has a capacity for only 10,000. The Native American-owned property is 10 miles from the original venue as the bird flies, but no one travels like a bird. They drive back and forth across all these miles and miles. Well, it's about 15 miles by car. A 20-minute drive from Shelby Park and the city's commercial center. Not too far. There was still hope for big crowds, and some of the area hotels prepared to take advantage of the influx. The local Hampton Inn hiked its regular rate from $224 a night to $1,417 a night for the night before the eclipse. Last night, one indication that things might not meet the expectations of the profiteers came as the price for a one-day festival pass fell from $80 to $50. A two-day pass that previously cost $160 fell to $95, and a three-day pass dropped from $225 to $135. Will Greg Abbott help? Hell no. Another bad sign came on February 22nd. When the city announced that its financial and business director, Jesus Rodriguez, had been fired, effective immediately. The city gave no explanation for the dismissal, but his responsibilities included the finances of 57 South. Meanwhile, Abbott and Donald Trump staged a mutually beneficial photo op in Shelby Park on February 29th. They spoke of an invasion from the South, though the number of migrants arriving there had plummeted from just a little more than 2,000 a day to less than a few dozen. That may have been in part a delayed response to Abbott's soldiers and razor wire, but the drop coincided with sharply increased migrant interdiction efforts in Mexico. Mexico really stepped it up, said Garcia Graywall, that's the resident of Eagle Pass, who makes regular visits to Mexico, delivering food to a once packed but now nearly empty migrant shelter in Piedras Negras, sister city to Eagle Pass. Oregon Capital Chronicle brings us this next offering here in the Bistro Cafe of West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy. River City Hash Mondays. The Democratic candidate running against incumbent Democratic Representative Jules Walters in a Clackamas County House district has given nearly $400,000 to state and federal Republican candidates and causes. Over the past 20 years, campaign finance records show Brian McGuire, the CEO of a data storage company, filed fewer than 2 hours before the March 12 filing deadline to challenge Walters, a first-term representative, and the former mayor of West Lynn. The winner of the Democratic primary will face Republican Ben Edtol in November, and Democrats hold an edge in the district. McGuire's history of political contributions, though, belie his decision to run as a Democrat. He contributed more than $284,000 to state and local candidates and organizations since 2008, and more than $110,000 to federal candidates since 2003. And that's state and federal campaign finance databases show. And nearly all of that money went to Republican candidates or conservative causes. And it's just the flip of the dice. flip of the coin. Well, that includes $25,000 to 2022 Republican gubernatorial nominee Christine Drazan, and just more than $25,000 to former state representative Newt Bueller of Bend in his 2018 race for governor. In 2020, McGuire gave almost $10,000 to House Republicans' campaign arm, the Evergreen PAC. But if he did $10,000, he'd have to file it differently and pay taxes. Other Republicans he supported included Trump, U.S. Representative Lori Chavez DeRaymer, former state rep Julie Parrish, and County Clackamas County Commissioners Tootie Smith and Ben West. Election deniers all. Records provided by the Secretary of State's office show he changed his voter registration from Republican to Democrat in February of 2020. He was a registered Republican prior to July of 2015 when he registered with the Independent Party of Oregon, then switched back to the Republican Party in January of 2017. Sounds to me like he's got some inside work along his Trump-aligned teammates. Cafe of West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy is by Amy Beth Hansen and Matthew Brown of the Associated Press. A trial begins today against Warren Buffett's BNSF Railway over the lung cancer deaths of two people who lived in a small northwestern Montana town where thousands of people were exposed to asbestos from a vermiculite mine. For decades, the W.R. Grace and Company mine near Libby produced the contaminated vermiculite that exposed residents to asbestos, sickening thousands and leading to the deaths of hundreds. The estates of Thomas Wells of La Conner, Oregon, and Joyce Walder of Westminster, California, filed a wrongful death lawsuit in 2021, arguing that BNSF and its corporate predecessors stored asbestos-laden vermiculite in a large railway yard in town before shipping it to plants where it was heated to expand it for use as insulation. The railroad failed to contain the dust from the vermiculite, allowing it and the asbestos it contained to be blown around town without warning residents about its dangers, the lawsuit states. People who lived and worked in Libby breathed in the microscopic needle-shaped asbestos fibers that caused the lung cancer mesothelioma or lung scarring called asbestosis. The lawsuit argues Wells, age 65, died on March 26 of 2020, a day after giving a 2.5-hour recorded deposition for the lawsuit, talking about his exposure during the seasonal work for the U.S. Forest Service in the Libby area in the late 70s and early 80s. He said his pain was intolerable, and he felt bad that his sons and friend had to take care of him. Wells said he had been diagnosed with mesothelioma in the fall of 2019 after feeling an ache in his back and developing a serious cough. Initially, doctors said there might be a surgical treatment, but that was quickly eliminated. Chemotherapy treatment also didn't help. but he had to sell his house to help cover the medical bills. Walder died in October of 2020 at the age of 66. She lived in Libby for at least 20 years and could have been exposed to asbestos while fishing and floating on a river that flowed past a spot where the vermiculite was loaded onto train cars. Her exposure may have come from playing on and watching games on the baseball field near the railway yard or walking along the tracks and occasionally heating up pieces of vermiculite to watch it puff up. BNS Railway is expected to argue that there's no proof Wells and Walder were exposed to asbestos levels above federal limits, that if they were in the railway yard, they were trespassing, and that Wells and Walder's medical conditions were not caused by BNSF. U.S. District Court Judge Brian Morris is overseeing the trial and has said he expects it to last at least 2 weeks. All right, that brings us to our break, and when we get back from that break, we will go through weather from around the world, and we will finish up with the stories that we've curated for you today. You are listening to West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy, and we will be right back.
You are listening to netrootsradio.com.
Please hang up and try again.
From a point at sea to the circles of your mind, a new force is at work for planetary transformation. New radio for a new Earth.
This is Take Two Movie Review. I'm Kim Lowe. This week, Monster Mashup. With King Kong vs. Godzilla, The New Empire, a sequel to 2021's Godzilla vs. Kong, there's no art house pretense. Instead, it's blatantly about action, violence, and special effects, and it more than delivers on all three. While ostensibly the lead is a human, a criminally underused Rebecca Hall as anthropologist Eileen Andrews, the real stars here are the respective title monsters. Here, Kong has been banished to Hollow Earth, the New Empire, where, homesick for his beloved Skull Island, he discovers he's not the area's only primate inhabitant. In fact, there's a hostile tribe of other giant apes who are secretly planning to escape to the upper world and take over. Meanwhile, Godzilla is still loose in the upper world, wreaking his usual havoc by crushing everything in his path. So how are the two monsters' situations linked? Don't worry, the movie eventually explains. It's not a spoiler to say the explanation is a tad absurd, but these franchises have never made bones about their intentions. If you see this one, you've already accepted the premise, so enjoy the state-of-the-art CGI. The two monsters look surprisingly real, and the aforementioned Hollow Earth, with its ethereal vistas and exotic Jurassic/modern jungle animals, is beyond impressive. Also, while Godzilla pretty much remains one-dimensional personality-wise, he is a lizard after all, Kong shows some complexity as in the last one. You'll find yourself feeling empathy for the iconic ape's loneliness and yearning for companionship in his new environment. King Kong vs. Godzilla is unlikely to become a classic, but it does provide the escape that these 90 and 70-year-old franchises respectively have provided young and old for generations. This has been Take Two Movie Review. I'm Kim Lowe. Catch up with us at TakeTwoMovieReview.com and feed us back on our channel on YouTube.
Hi, I'm Tom Hartman, and since you're listening to netrootsradio.com, show your progressive side and go to the donate button on the bottom of the homepage. It's progressives like you who power Netroots Radio and keep the progressive message beaming everywhere 24 hours a day. Just go to our donate button at the bottom of netrootsradio.com. Thank you for keeping progressive radio at full power.
You're listening to the American Democracy Minute, keeping your government by and for the people. The election denier group True the Vote is one of the loudest and most aggressive in casting doubt on the 2020 election. In Georgia, its claims of fraudulent absentee ballots being deposited in drop boxes was used in a documentary parroted by former President Donald Trump and his allies and led to the banning of drop boxes in several states. In a court filing this week, True the Vote said it had no such evidence. According to the Associated Press, the group filed a complaint with Georgia Secretary of State Brad Raffensperger in 2021, saying it had, quote, a detailed account of coordinated efforts to collect and deposit ballots in drop boxes across metro Atlanta. The Georgia Board of Elections repeatedly requested the evidence from the Texas-based group to no avail. The Board of Elections asked a Superior Court judge to subpoena the information, resulting in a court filing last week obtained by the Atlanta Journal-Constitution. In response to the subpoena, the group said, quote, True the Vote has no such documents in its possession, custody, or control. Such claims fueled the now debunked documentary 2,000 Mules and drove state legislatures to limit or eliminate drop boxes. The alleged ballot mules shown were legitimate voters or family members delivering ballots. 12 states have since banned drop boxes, and many others have made absentee voting more difficult. We have more reporting linked at AmericanDemocracyMinute.org. I'm Brian Beal.
Thank you for accompanying us here to the Chef's Table at West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy, River City Hash Mondays. We always begin weather from around the world along the banks of the Rogue River, in the Rogue River Valley of Southern Oregon on the west coast of the continental United States of America, where it is currently 42 degrees Fahrenheit, expecting highs in the upper 60s. A bit warmer than what we've had over the weekend, a mix of clouds and sun throughout the day. Winds will be light and variable. Clear to partly cloudy tonight with lows in the low 40s. Winds remaining light and variable, then partly cloudy skies tomorrow with highs once again in the upper 60s. Winds light and variable. Grass pollen is rated as moderate here in Rogue River proper. The air quality index for the region is in the good range at 19 parts per million, and that daytime UV index has ticked down into the moderate range at level 5. Barometric pressure is falling at 30.3 inches, visibility is up to 10 miles, and relative humidity is at 93%. Weather from around the world is brought to you by a crowd of crowdsourced weather stations that a crowd crowdsources from around the world, and that is the Weather Underground. London is 62 degrees and cloudy. Paris is 73 and partly cloudy. Rome is 71 and sunny. Kabul is 58 and fair. Hong Kong is 66 degrees and cloudy. Tokyo is 65 and cloudy. Melbourne, Victoria, Australia is 52 and mostly cloudy. San Francisco, California is 52 degrees and sunny. Chicago, Illinois is 61 and sunny. And New York, New York is 58 degrees Fahrenheit and sunny. And that is weather from around the world, brought to you by a crowd of crowdsourced weather stations that a crowd crowdsources from around the world. World Desk of the Associated Press brings us this first amuse-bouche here at the Chef's Table at West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy, River City Hash Mondays. A second British lawmaker has acknowledged receiving explicit messages on his phone in what police are investigating as a malicious phishing attempt against politicians, their staff, and journalists. Conservative legislator Luke Evans said he had been a victim of cyber flashing and malicious communications a month ago when an unknown individual sent him an explicit image of a naked lady. Well, in Catholic school, they delineated between naked and nude. You feel guilty when you're naked. You don't when you're nude. I think she was nude. Anyway, Evans said in a video message on Friday that he immediately reported the incident to police and parliamentary authorities. Another Conservative MP, William Ragg, revealed on Thursday that he had disclosed some colleagues' phone numbers to an unknown individual who contacted him on a gay dating app. Ragg said he exchanged messages with the individual who called himself Charlie and had sent an explicit photo of himself. Ragg told the Times of London that he was scared and manipulated into giving his colleagues' numbers to the unknown individual he had met on Grindr. News website Politico was the first to report that several current or former parliamentarians, staffers, and political journalists had been contacted by an unknown number on WhatsApp. The sender claimed to be Charlie or Abby and tried to strike up flirtatious conversations. The honey trap sexting scam has been described as spear phishing, a type of cyber attack that targets specific groups. It involves scammers pretending to be trusted senders in order to steal personal or sensitive information. British intelligence agencies have warned of attempts by hackers linked to foreign states, especially China, to target politicians with cyber attacks. Police have not said who they think was behind the messages. Associated Press's World Desk brings us this final amuse-bouche here at the chef's table at West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy River City Hash Mondays. A crusading Brazilian Supreme Court justice included Elon Musk as a target in an ongoing investigation over the dissemination of fake news and opened a separate investigation late last night, Sunday, into the executive for alleged obstruction. In his decision, Justice Alexandre de Moraes noted that Musk on Saturday began waging a public disinformation campaign regarding the top court's actions, and that Musk continued the following day, most notably with comments that his social media company X would cease to comply with the court's orders to block certain accounts. The flagrant conduct of obstruction of a Brazilian justice, incitement of crime, the public threat of disobedience of court orders, and future lack of cooperation from the platform are facts that disrespect the sovereignty of Brazil, de Moraes wrote. Musk will be investigated for intentional criminal instrumentalization of X as a part of an investigation into a network of people known as digital militias who allegedly spread defamatory fake news and threats against Supreme Court justices, according to the text of the decision. The new investigation will look into whether Musk engaged in obstruction, criminal organization, and incitement. Brazil's political right has long characterized De Moraes as overstepping his bounds to clamp down on free speech and engage in political persecution. In the digital militias investigation, lawmakers from former President Bolsonaro's circle have been imprisoned and his supporters' homes raided. Bolsonaro himself became a target of the investigation in 2021. Let's not forget, they tried to violently overthrow the government, and they threw all their asses in jail and made it so that Bolsonaro could not run again. De Moraes' defenders have said his decisions, although extraordinary, are legally sound and necessary to purge social media of fake news as well as extinguish threats to Brazil's democracy, notoriously underscored by the January 8th, 2023 uprising in Brazil's capital that resembled our own January 6th insurrection in our own U.S. Capitol. Well, that brings us to the end of our broadcast period for the day. Glitchy as it's been, but we will return tomorrow, hopefully not as glitchy, for Tarrytown Chowder Tuesdays. So do stay tuned to Netroots Radio all day and all night for all the breaking news as it breaks. And we will meet up here tomorrow, right here in West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy. Bon appetit.
Je voudrais du soleil vert, des dentelles et des théières, des photos de bord de mer, dans mon jardin d'hiver. Je voudrais de la lumière, comme en Nouvelle-Angleterre. Je veux changer d'atmosphère, dans mon jardin d'hiver. À fleurs sous la pluie de novembre, tes mains qui courent, je n'en peux plus de t'attendre. Les années passent, qu'il est loin, là je tombe. Nul ne peut nous entendre. Je voudrais du Fred Astaire, revoir un latte Goël. Je voudrais toujours te plaire dans mon jardin d'hiver. Je veux déjeuner par terre, comme au long de golfe clair. T'embrasser les yeux ouverts dans mon jardin d'hiver. Pluie de novembre, tes mains qui courent, je n'en peux plus de t'attendre. Les années passent, il est loin, là je tombe. Nul ne peut nous entendre. Ba-da-da-dum-di-da-dum. 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 Dans mon jardin d'hiver. Ba-da-da-dum-di-da-dum. 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 Dans mon jardin d'hiver. Dans mon jardin d'hiver. Dans mon jardin d'hiver.